All right, good morning. My name is Sara Hey with Clements International. We are going to get ready to get started in about 5 minutes. So this is your 5-minute warning. We'll get started talking about finding and hiring key employees. And so now's a great time. Use the restroom, grab that cup of coffee. I'm excited to be with you guys over this next hour. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes to start. All right. Good morning. My name is Sara Hey, and I am with Bob Clements International. And we are going to go ahead and get started here in just about a minute. So now is a great time to go refill your coffee real quick if you need to. And we'll get started here in just a minute. Thanks, guys. All right. Hi again, my name is Sara Hey with Bob Clements International, and I am so excited to be with you guys today talking about finding and hiring key employees. So a little bit about ourselves. I have been with Bob Clements International for about 7 years now, which is so hard to believe. We are a family business, and Bob is my dad. So we understand the trials and tribulations many of you guys are going through as a family business as well. So anyways, I'm so excited to be here with you today. I'm so excited to partner with NATDA on this dealer performance training webinar. We are constantly working with them to provide you with more great information and great training at your fingertips. And they have been such a great partner. We've been working with them for about 2 years, and we're working on lots of exciting things, from our NATDA dealer success groups to our NATDA dealer toolbox. And we'll talk about a few of the resources that you can find in those throughout this presentation today. But I'm just excited to be with you guys. Like I said, I'm in a family business. Bob is my dad, and I've been with the company for full-time for almost 7 years now, which is just hard to believe. I went to school and got a degree in psychology, and I came to realize, number one, that that was not actually what I was passionate about, but number two, a degree in psychology uniquely situates you to be a part of a family business. If you're a part of a family business, you'll know that to be true too. A degree in psychology uniquely situates you for that role. So as I came into the family business, I did a whole lot of things. I started out as inside sales, helped out with our social media, did a lot of things. But I finally came to this place where I am now, where I'm working to over project management and some of the really cool things that we're doing, and doing a lot of speaking. So I'm just thrilled to be with you guys today. So one of the questions that we get asked more than just about any other question is, how do we find and hire people for our dealership who are actually going to stick around, right? How do we do this, and how do we do it well? I mean, there's a lot of time, money, and energy invested in finding and hiring good people for your dealership. And many of you are like us, who are small businesses, and you're looking to grow and expand, and your people are a critical aspect to you growing and expanding your business. So how do we do it, and how do we do it well and effectively and time efficiently? Number two, the second question we ask when we get asked when we're talking about finding and hiring key employees is this: why do you care? Why do you, the people who work on processes, right, and parts and service and sales, why do you care about finding and hiring key employees? Well, here's the deal. As a company that works in processes, and we work, and as we're working with dealerships across the country, we're in hundreds of dealerships every single year, feet on the ground, and then working with hundreds others in our dealer success groups. What we find is that when you have a bad hire, you call us at the end of the day. Because you didn't follow a process, you end up in a whole lot of mess, and you call us and you say, help. And so we have put together at Bob Clements International 7 steps that, if you can follow, will get you in the right direction of finding the right people for your dealership. All right, and I'm so excited to dive into this with you today. So the first thing I want to talk about is simply this: what does it cost if we hire the wrong employee? A few years back, I read this book called Hiring Smart, and it says this. It says, if you make a mistake in hiring and you recognize and rectify the situation within 6 months, the cost of replacing that employee is 2.5 times the person's annual salary. All right, so did you catch that? If we make a mistake in hiring and we realize we made the mistake and we fix the mistake in 6 months, like, how many of us have gone way longer than 6 months without fixing a hiring mistake? We have. Like, we've gone way longer than that. But if we realize the mistake and fix it within 6 months, the cost of replacing that person is 2.5 times the person's annual salary. 2.5 times. Now, you may be looking at this going, okay, Sarah, that seems a little out of control. 2.5 times, like they've only been with us for 6 months. So I'm just guessing it's like 6 months expense. Maybe like 2 times, right? I don't know. But here's the thing. As I did some more research on this, I found a few things, right? Think about it. It takes your time to find and hire the right employee, your time to train that employee, maybe other managers' time to train that employee. You're paying taxes, you're paying unemployment, you're paying health insurance, and then you're paying their actual salary. Then if we have to replace that employee, we're paying that person's salary. We're paying for your time and energy to find that new employee again, their taxes, their training. All of this adds up. So we have to understand that if we make a mistake in hiring, we've got to figure it out and we've got to change it as soon as possible because that's a lot of money. So how much money is it actually? Like, okay, sure, it seems like a lot of money in your imagination. Well, on Google, it says that the average annual income for someone in the United States right now is $50,000. All right, I get it. In your area, that may be a little bit high, that may be a little bit low, but on average, across the nation, United States, on average, it's $50,000 is what somebody makes. So if we use this formula, 2.5 times $50,000, we're looking at spending $125,000 on a bad employee, on an employee that didn't work out for us. $125,000. That's like throwing $125,000 $1 bills in that trash can. Like, I'm not playing games. In Kansas City, where we're located out of, $125,000 is a whole lot of money. All right, so just how much money is $125,000? Here are some things that you can buy for $125,000, just so we can understand the gravity of the situation, right? I know lots of you are in this place of trying to expand your shop. You can buy a real nice shop expansion for $125,000, right? Maybe you're looking at paving your parking lot. For the cost of an employee who didn't work out for 6 months, you could have that paved parking lot. A high school jumbotron. I mean, think about it. Just a few months ago, we were talking about marketing on our NATDA Dealer Success Group. And one of the things we were talking about was signage and how much we should be putting towards that, all of those things. But if you're thinking about your marketing budget, could you imagine, you could like light up your whole entire town with that jumbotron. Could you imagine? And you could buy that for the cost of an employee who lasts you 6 months. That's pretty insane. Last but not least, and my favorite, you could legitimately buy this view from this island in Fiji for $125,000. You know, and I say all of this, I'm not trying to make you feel bad that you've made a bad hiring decision. We've been there too. We've been there. I want you to know we are right alongside you. But when we're able to look at that money in terms of other goals that we have for our business, it puts it in perspective for us. Okay, so what are we supposed to do? We have a process. You know, if you have been around our company, BCI, for any length of time, you know that we are process oriented. We've got a process for everything. When a customer walks into your dealership, we've got a process on how you greet them when they bring their trailer in, and we have a process on what are the things that we're looking for, triage process, service process, transaction time process at your parts counter. Everything has a process, and this is no different. It's vitally important that as we're working through the hiring process, we actually have a process we follow, because all of us are in this place that when you need an employee, you need them yesterday. And you just sometimes are so anxious to have that warm body in your dealership that you just throw all common sense out the door because you need somebody to fill a position, because who is it falling on? It's falling on your employees, or maybe it's falling on you. So it's so vitally important we have a process we can follow in the midst of times when we're really needing extra help. So we have 7 pieces of a process that we go through internally, and as we work with dealers, that we encourage them to do. So here are the 7 different pieces. First, we've got to have a job description. We'll dive into this a little bit more in just a moment, but it's so important that we actually have a job description that's not only just sent out to the people we're looking for, but that's internally as well. We want everyone to know what everyone else is responsible for. The second step of our process is actually finding our candidates. Where do we look? Like, especially for that all elusive technician, like, where do we look to find people who would be a good fit for our dealership? Third, in our company, we do a personality assessment. We're doing an initial interview after that, so our phone interview. We're calling our references, followed by an actual in-person interview. And the last piece is we're going to do a final interview and extend the offer. So job descriptions first, finding candidates, personality assessments, initial interview, call reference, in-person interview, and final interview or extending an offer. It's all part of the process. And if you skip one of these pieces, we've been doing this for so long and in so many dealerships, we see that just skipping one of these pieces puts you back to square one. This is really a way that we can find a well-rounded person to fill a need for you. And it's just not finding the next warm body who could possibly make it work in your dealership. So let's jump in to a job description. What do we need in a job description? And I know you're probably like, Sarah, like, shoot, I don't know about you, but every time I try to start doing a job description, I just want to bang my head against the wall. Like, aren't you supposed to sit here and give us your job descriptions? Like, number one, we have every job description for every part of your dealership that you could possibly need in the NATDA dealer toolbox. Not here to push that or anything, but there are so many resources specifically in the hiring process available in that. So that's something you want, all those job descriptions, get with us after. But here's the thing. As we're writing job descriptions, it's important that we have a few different components really front and center with this, right? As you're writing a job description, let's say we're writing a job description for a service manager. Let's say that's who we're writing a job description for, right? We need to be clear. What is actually expected of this person in this role, right? What is it? What does the hours really look like? How much time are they actually going to be on their feet? And you may say, hey, Sarah, like, you know, somebody walking into a service manager position should know how much time they're going to be on their feet, right? They should know that they're going to need to be there from the time the shop opens to the time the shop closes. But let's just be real. Not everybody has a whole lot of common sense, right? And so we need to spell out specifically what it looks like for someone to come into that job and do it well. Because our goal as we're going through this is we want people to disqualify themselves if they're not a good fit. You're like, hold on, Sarah, do you know how hard it is to actually get people to apply for these jobs, number one, much less find good people, number two? I know, but it will save you time, energy, and headache if you can have people start disqualifying themselves from the beginning so that you don't have to deal with it, right? So clarity, what are the actual expectations of this person? The second thing is it needs to be conversational and engaging. When people read this job description, you want them to understand what it is you're looking for with the clarity, but you want them to have a feeling of who you are, right? And that kind of pops into our next thing of conveying your company's personality. We want your company's personality to shine through on the job description. We always joke. So in our office in Kansas City, we have an office here, and on our walls, we have sarcastic quotes everywhere. And we were hiring someone probably about a year ago. And as we were going through this process, the conversation came up. You think we should remove the quotes from the walls? No. If somebody can't deal with our sarcasm, they're not going to be a good fit. It's important that we convey our company's personality throughout. And that's not to be lost on the job description. Make sure your company's personality shines. It also needs to be honest, right? You need to be straight with everyone about what you're expecting. One thing I saw about as we were making job descriptions for us internally, we had a sentence on ours. We were hiring someone to help us with some online training that we were doing. And we said on there, you need to be able to keep up with a fast-paced leader and pick up the pieces behind them to make them look seamless. Right? Like, it has to be so honest that people know what they're getting into so they don't come in and go, oh, it wasn't in my job description. Like, that is our least favorite phrase at BCI. It wasn't in my job description. The other thing about job descriptions, this is a little soapbox, I'll be on and off real quick. But the other thing about job descriptions you've got to keep in mind is a job description is the minimum required of someone to keep their job, not the maximum. Did you catch that? A job description is the minimum required of someone to what they have to do to keep their job. We had a technician, I don't know, a while back at a dealership we were working with, and there was a styrofoam cup in the parking lot. And as they walked in, they walked past the styrofoam cup, and they just left it there. They just left it there. The manager came up to him later and said, hey, why didn't you pick up that styrofoam cup? He literally said, it wasn't in my job description. We've got to get out of that mentality. It's the minimum required to keep the job, not your maximum. But all of these things will go into creating a good job description. So step number 2, how do we find candidates? You know, like, okay, we've got the job description, and how do we actually go about finding people to fill the roles that we have in our dealerships? There's a few different ways. We've got our traditional ways that you probably all know and all use. Craigslist and newspapers. Depending on your region and what your area is like, we find that Craigslist and newspapers can still be valuable. You know your region and you know your area and you know where people are looking for jobs. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but that is one way that people still use quite a bit. Job recruiter sites. All right, so I know most people are using job recruiter sites. And as we have gone through this process, we have found 2 that we really, really like and we have great luck with. All right, the first one is Indeed.com. All right, Indeed.com is the first one we like. The second one for a dealership as a whole is ZipRecruiter. Okay, so Indeed.com and ZipRecruiter are 2 that we have great luck with. There's some different pricing structures with those that you need to be aware of, but if you just do a quick Google search, it should pop right up. The third one, when you're looking for technicians, I believe is called findamechanic.com. So that is, if you're just looking for technicians, that's a great place to start and put your job postings out there. So as we talk about job recruiter sites, I do want to hit on 2 quick things with those, right? So the pricing structures are different for each one. ZipRecruiter is a more upfront price and includes everything, whereas Indeed it starts out free and then you can add things on. So it just depends. You're going to get 2 different sets of candidates for the most part from those. But what we like about both of those sites is this. You are able to set a basic questions that you would like for people to answer from the extent of what's your hours of availability, right? Do you have a reliable method of transportation to work every day? Like basic questions that you need to either qualify or disqualify people from the ability to work for you and even apply for your position. Because what we're trying to do is make sure that we are continuing to narrow the pool, that the people who are in front of you and using your time and energy, which is the most valuable asset in your dealership, your time and energy as an owner or a manager, is being used to the best of your ability. And while you may love talking to people and doing interviews, if you can now narrow the amount of people that you are actually having conversations with, it's going to help you in the long run. So those are the job recruiter sites we recommend. The other quick thing to keep in mind about job recruiter sites is this. Job recruiter sites are just like Google or your website. And they are a Google search in essence. They're an online search engine. And they use something called search engine optimization. All right. And so that is a big word, big phrase for how you get the best results when you're looking for something. So it's important to keep in mind that as you're using job recruiter sites, you want to use words and phrases that other industries who have similar people might use that would do that crossover. So, for example, we were talking about service department, technicians, those all-inclusive technicians. What are some of the things and different people we would want to get at on these job recruiter sites, right? People who are truck drivers who are ready to get off the road. So having the letter CDL, right, commercial driver's license behind that so it pops up would be a great thing to do, right? We're looking at different ways. People who are coming out of the military, we'll talk about that a little bit more because a lot of dealers have a lot of great luck. Or even retired firefighters. So thinking about different industries and phrases we can use that will cross over is so important when you're using a job recruiter site to its full potential. All right, and temp agencies. You know, again, this is very dependent on your area, what works in your area or not, but we have some dealers who do have some good luck with temp agencies. You know, the biggest issue I think they see is the cost. It's expensive to use a temp agency and hire a person on and pay those fees. So it's expensive. But if you need somebody and they're able to place you with a qualified candidate, it's a great option. So those are 3 of the traditional ways that we see dealers use all the time. So let's talk about some non-traditional ways. And, you know, even as I was doing this PowerPoint, I was just sitting here laughing. I think even these non-traditional ways are becoming more traditional. Like these are ways that we're seeing dealers across the country doing it. Employees, like talk to your employees. As soon as we finish a job description at BCI, we send it out to everyone on our team. And we say, hey, do you know anybody who may be looking for a position like this? We actually ask our employees to send this out to 5 people they know. It may not be the right person, but people who connect with other people, you just never know who might come in from that. And here's the thing with the employees. People like people who are like themselves, right? People like people who are like themselves. So if you like your employees and you are happy with the team you have in place, they are going to bring in other people who are like themselves. Now, if you don't like the team you have in place, that is a whole different webinar for a whole different day. But check out to visit with your employees, see what they have in regards to that. You know, again, let's say we're talking about these all-elusive technicians. If you talk to your technicians, the chances are them knowing other technicians is so high. Maybe it was they were at tech school together or whatever it is, but there is a high chance that they know other technicians, and they probably know them on a personal level where they know if they're ready to make a change or make a move or whatever that is. So be sure you talk to your employees. Social media. Are you posting your jobs on your company's social media page, right? These are already people who like you and know you, have a good understanding of who you are. Make sure you're posting your job openings on your social media pages. Local colleges. You know, a while back, we were looking for someone to help us with marketing. And I went to our local college here in Kansas City and set up a booth in their commons area. And I had our job description, and I was just looking for someone, we just wanted somebody part-time at that time, who was in college and maybe graduated in the next 6 to 12 months, who was in marketing. And so then I had this great opportunity to not only connect with new talent before it became available to the general public, but we had a great test period where we weren't paying a whole lot of money out to find somebody to fill this gap for us. Now, it didn't work in the long run, but if you're looking for someone, say even someone to help work at the parts counter during season, this is a great place to go. Find college students who are going to be there with you year after year. And then if there's a position that opens up for them after they're done with college, you may be able to move it in. Otherwise, you've got a great connection and a great network of people to look for. Hiring open houses. You know, this has been a can of worms. You know, some people have a whole lot of great luck with hiring open houses and some people don't. But the one thing I want you to keep in mind is that when we're trying to find candidates, we're really trying to market our dealership and see if we can attract the best talent. That's what we're trying to do. And so when you go to something like a hiring open house, what you're trying to do is connect with other people who may know other people, right? That word of mouth. Maybe it's somebody's aunt or their sister or somebody who you actually talk to and say, you know what? My brother is actually a technician looking for a new job. I'll pass his information on to you. It's all about that connection, and that is what's important. So finding the ways to connect with other people is vitally important. All right, online forums. I was talking with one of the guys in our office, I don't know, a while back about finding technicians. And he said, you know, Sarah, one place that you should look is online tech forums, right? And not even tech forums, but like auto care forums. There's a few guys in our office who have these big trucks, and they all like to do their own work on them, right? And as we're working with dealerships, it makes a lot of sense. But when they come into a problem that they don't understand, they go on to these online fix a truck forum and they type in their question, and they have other people who are mechanically minded answering these questions for them. And it's pretty incredible the answers they're getting. Now, I want you to go on to these things if you're looking for this and say, hey, I know you're probably not looking for a job, but if something comes up and you want a chance to just visit with me, here's my information. It's just so important that we are out in front of as many people as we possibly can when we're trying to find this, so then we can start narrowing down the field. Other places you do business is also an important thing to think about. Maybe you have had a really great time and a great relationship with the receptionist at your kid's pediatrician's office, right? Or maybe it's something like your favorite waiter or waitress at your local restaurant that you visit often just goes above and beyond every single time. Whatever it is, wherever you do business, make sure you're constantly thinking, could this person be a good fit for my company? So important. And then as this comes up, have conversations. Say, hey, I know you're probably not looking, right? Fingers crossed, hope you are. But if you ever come to a place and you're ready for a change, give me a call. We're not marrying this person. We're not hiring this person. They're not going on payroll tomorrow. All that's simply happening is you are opening up the chance that you get to have the first conversation with this person. And again, we want to find people we like to do business with because it helps us so dramatically. The other things I was talking about as we were talking about job recruiter sites, just briefly, some other places we've had dealers find good luck finding technicians specifically. Truck drivers, people who are wanting to get off the road and have a more normal schedule. They're great. They're mechanically inclined. Yes, it's going to take a little bit of training. Yes, it's going to. Regardless of who you're going to bring on, there's going to be a little bit of training. But you have someone who's very mechanically minded and is able to they're used to big equipment, and so you can do a lot of things with that. People coming out of the military, contacting your local VA association, your VAA, and getting in contact with them and saying, hey, you know what, we are looking for people, maybe it's for parts and people who have done inventory in the past. There are whole groups of people in the military who strictly do inventory. Are you aware of that? So by connecting with those, not only are you providing a veteran a job, but you are also finding someone who could fill the needs of your dealership, right? There's people in the military who are mechanics. So just getting in touch with your local VA will help you so much. So those are some of the different ways that I encourage our dealers to find, where do you go? Where do you find these employees that just seem so hard to find? All right, so the next thing we talk about is personality assessments. But before we dive in, I need you to go on a little journey with me, all right? This is a journey back to 6th grade PE class. I know it's painful, but we'll get through it together. So just take a second and think about yourself back in 6th grade. You've got your glasses on, your braces on, and we are there at PE day. Man, it's rough, isn't it? But not any PE day, but it is dodgeball day at PE class. All right, so we're 6th graders, and we are in dodgeball day. We walk out to the court, and you're going to go into one of 4 groups, right? As we have worked with dealerships across the country and people across the country, we find that on dodgeball day in 6th grade, you go into one of 4 groups. So I want you to look at these and put yourself in one of these groups. All right, so are you in the first group? Are you the person who's standing in the middle of the group and talking to your friends? Okay, first group. You're standing in the middle of the group and you're talking to your friends. You get all the information about what's happening with all the other 6th graders and the gossip and the drama, right? You're that person. Maybe you're the one who's supplying the information. That's probably more likely. 2, are you standing as close to the wall as physically possible? The idea of getting hit with the dodgeball is something that you cannot handle, and you are doing everything you can to move out of the way and not be hit by the ball. Okay, that's group number 2, 6th grade. This is so painful for all of us. Number 3, are you at the front line throwing the ball as hard as you can, right? You don't care if you get hit. The only objective in this is making sure you hit somebody else with that ball. 4, are you the one who comes up with a plan to win that you follow at all costs? It's all about planning in dodgeball, would maybe be your motto. Okay, so which one are you? Write it down on a little piece of paper in front of you. Number 1, are you the one standing in the middle of the group talking to your friends? 2, are you standing as close to the wall as physically possible? Heaven forbid that dodgeball hit us on dodgeball day. Are you the one at the front line throwing the ball as hard as you can? Or are you the one who comes up with a plan to win that you follow at all costs? Okay, so write it down on a piece of paper in front of you, and let's dive into what this means. All right, group 1. If you are in group 1, you are a high I or an influencer personality. You like to shape your environment by influencing and persuading others. That means that you are the life of the party, right? People come into your dealership and you know their names, you know their kids' names, and you know their dog's name. You know everybody. Everybody loves to visit with you and hang out with you. People who are in this high I or influencer category are motivated by approval and praise. There is nothing that makes you happier than being able to fix a customer's problem and them saying, you know what, thank you. Like, there's nothing that makes you happier than that. All right, the animal that you are most like, if you were to say, who is an I personality like, is a dolphin, right? They're friendly. They're always in a group of people. They're just always so excited. Everybody loves a dolphin. Everybody loves a dolphin, right? So that is this high I or influencer personality. You're shaping your environment by influencing and persuading others. That's how you make change happen, by influencing or persuading others. When you think about someone who's a high I personality, or who you would want as a high I personality in your dealership, it's somebody in sales. Somebody, your salespeople need to be very friendly. They need to be influencing people and then persuading others to make decisions happen. And that's what high I's do so well. So with every personality, there is a strength and there's a weakness. All right. So with this high I personality, your strengths are this. Number one, you're optimistic. There's nothing that you can't do. You can figure out a solution to anything, right? You have a desire to help others. You have a great heart most of the time, and you're very verbally articulate, right? So this is why we always joke about salespeople, right? If somebody comes in and they say, hey, do you think you can have this done for me? A salesperson's natural inclination is to say, absolutely. Absolutely, I can have it done, because they're optimistic and they have a desire to help others. So some of the weaknesses that come with this high I personality or this influencer personality are this. You overestimate results, right? That thing you may promise may not have been able to be done by the shop in the amount of time you promised. That's tough. You act impulsively sometimes, and sometimes you overcommit. These are the people who have their calendars just packed to the brim because they have said yes to everything. A high I or influencer person has such a hard time saying no. So with each of these different groups, we're going to work on a phrase that's going to help you interact with other people. As we're talking about this influencer personality, one of the things that happens is they often come into your office or come up to you and they just start talking about their weekend, everything that's going on in their life. And the phrase that you've got to be able to master as an influencer personality is this. It's, are you busy? As you walk up to someone else in your dealership or wherever it is, you've got to be able to come in and say, hey, I'd love to show you this XYZ, or I'd love to tell you about what happened over my weekend, but are you busy? It's painful for someone who's an influencer to say those words, but it's so vitally important to understand that not everybody wants to hear about your whole entire weekend in the moment because they've got other things going on. All right, so think about that. Think about somebody you go, oh, they could work on that phrase. Are you busy? Like, yeah, I know some people too. All right, group two. These are the people who are sitting as close to the wall as physically possible and hoping and praying they don't ever get hit by the ball. All right, this is a high S or a steady personality. The animal they're most like is a golden retriever. They're loyal, they're consistent, and they are always there. You can always count on this person. Their goal is to get tasks completed with as little conflict as possible. That is their ultimate goal. They don't want conflict, they don't want change, and they want to get the things that they needed done with as little conflict as possible. What motivates them is safety and security. Those are the two things that are the ultimate motivation for these people. So as you think about your dealership, who are high S personalities? Think about it for a second. Technicians are typically high S personalities. They're focused on the job at hand, and they want to get it done as quickly as possible, but with as little conflict as possible. High S personalities. So here are the strengths for someone who's a steady personality, right? They're loyal. They're so loyal. You know, people always go, well, the technician went down the road to a new dealership for another $1 an hour. Let me tell you, I mean, this is a whole different webinar as well, but people will not leave your dealership just for $1 an hour. There are other factors in that too, but someone who's a high S personality specifically is incredibly loyal to you, right? They have consistency, right? There's somebody who loves consistency, knowing that they get to start the day and end the day at the same times, and that there is just consistency there for them. And they love to perform established work patterns, right? This is where we're talking about technicians. Technicians are such a great fit for, are typically the steady personality. Some of the weaknesses that people who have a steady personality have is they have trouble meeting deadlines, right? They have trouble meeting deadlines. They don't know, they have this, there's no understanding of time, right? And we always joke that technicians lose time. They don't know where time goes. They say, oh, it's going to be a 2-hour job, and 8 hours later, they're still in the middle of it. So you have to understand that there's going to be trouble meeting deadlines. Procrastinating, that's another big one, right? They don't understand time and aren't able to always do that, so that's important. And resisting change, we talked about that. One of the things that they love most is safety and security. So if you were to have change, that is detrimental. So like we were saying with the high I personality, are you busy, is their phrase. The steady personality has a phrase too, right? And their phrase is this: I'm open to your ideas. They're not open to your ideas, just so we're clear. Someone who is a high S or a steady personality is not open to your ideas, because your ideas present them with everything that they are against, right? A disruption in their safety and a disruption in their security, and you are giving them change. They're not open to new ideas. But for us to work together, a high S personality or steady personality has to understand how that all meshes together. All right, this next group, this is the group that is throwing the ball at the front line as hard as you possibly can. You don't care if you get hit by another ball, but you're throwing it as hard as you can. This is group 3. This is the high D or a driver personality. All right, the animal that you are most like is a lion, right? A lion. They're fierce, they're ready to move and groove. And you guys, you are my people. Like, I am such a high D personality, and these are my people. And here's the deal. We're going to talk high D to high D real quick. When we make a decision about something, we are going to get them done regardless of the ramification, right? Regardless of what's going to happen, we are going to get it done. It's this damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead type of mentality. Every time you walk around, it's like you're throwing atomic bombs all over the place. And you've got to have people around you to help clean up the mess. We've got to realize we're doing this, number one. But the things that motivate us as a high D or a driver personality is challenges and setting and achieving goals, right? We love to be challenged. If you work with somebody who's a high D and you walk into your dealership and there's somebody who just says, well, you're looking terrible today, right? They're probably a high D personality. And you go, well, you know what, Cupcake, you're looking not so hot yourself, right? They will respect that. They love the challenge, right? And that's part of where our office with the sarcasm I was talking about comes in. We are so sarcastic, but we have a lot of drivers on our team. So if something needs to be done on our team and it needs to be done yesterday, our team, come hell or high water, will get that done. And so it's important to understand the dynamics of that. All right, so what are the strengths of a driver personality, right? They're going to take charge. Yeah, large and in charge. They know what's going on. They make quick decisions. There's not going to be a lot of this think time with them. And they're persistent. If there's something that they want to see happen, they will make sure it happens. That's the way it goes, right? Weaknesses, you're impatient. You take on too much. And a lot of times you can be too demanding of others. Again, high D to high D, I get it. All of these things probably have been said of me in this last week, right, by my team. But we have to understand how we affect each other. So our phrase, high Ds, this is a painful one, and I'm just going to tell you that up front. Our phrase for someone who's a high D personality is this: I'm sorry. Ouch. I told you, just let that ruminate for 1 second. The phrase is, I'm sorry. So I know it's painful, but we have a joke. One of the guys in our office, he is a high D personality, and before he even starts the conversation, he typically starts with, I'm sorry. and sometimes that's a good thing. You go, well, Sarah, I'm not actually sorry. Well, sometimes you got to fake it till you make it, okay? You've got to understand how you and your personality affect other people. All right, group 4. Who are the people? These are the people who are coming up with a plan to win, and they follow it at all costs. They've thought through the plan, and they're ready to go. You are a high C or our compliant personality. Another name for compliant is thinker, right? You like to think through all the details of something before making a decision. And the animal that I like to associate with this personality is an owl. You're wise, you're thoughtful, and you're observant. So what are some of the characteristics of someone who's a high C or a compliant personality? Right? These are people who gather, criticize, and test information, then come up with a best plan. We were just talking about the high D personality or the driver who comes up with a plan and just follows it, right? or they don't even come up with a plan. Most of the time, they just make a decision and just go with it. There's not a whole lot of thought process. You are on the other end of the spectrum. Your first instinct is not just to make a decision, but it's to come up with a plan for that decision. And you are motivated by information and logic. You can never have too much information to make a decision on if you are a compliant personality. So think for a minute. If we were hiring in a dealership and we had a person who applied who was a high C personality, what would be a great position fit for them? Someone doing parts inventory. You want somebody who is motivated by information and logic doing your parts inventory, right? You don't want somebody in there who's a high D or a driver who says, best guess, right? Or someone who's a driver who's doing your cash drawer, like, oh, heck no. You want somebody who wants to be understand exactly what the information is and how to use it, and that they are very thorough. So what are some of the strengths of someone who is this high compliant or thinker personality? It's this: they're orderly, right? We're thorough. We're going to make sure that everything is done, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and they're analytical. But that just goes back to what I was saying. If you have someone, you need a person to do parts inventory, your high C or compliant thinker personality is the person you need in that position. Some of the weaknesses are that you're picky, you're too detailed, and you're too cautious. You have an information thing where you can't even make a decision based on that. So those are things we've got to think about in regards to that. So our phrase for someone who is a high C personality is this. And if you are a high C personality or know someone who is a high C personality, you are just going to squirm. But it's this. It's, I trust you. I trust you. That's your phrase. But here's the thing. You don't trust them. They haven't thought through it like you have. They don't care about all the details like you care so thoroughly about all the details. But for us to work with other people, it's important that we trust them. So why does this matter? Like, Sarah, why did you just spend all this time talking about dodgeball? Why does this matter? Because as we are looking to fill spots in our dealership and we're looking for the right people to fit into our team, there's two things that have to occur. Number one, we've got to understand what type of personalities we need to fill in these positions. Like I said, we may not always have a picture perfect, say maybe there's someone who's a little bit different off of what we think the personality should be for a technician, and they're still a great technician. But it gives us a place to start and say, you know what, I want somebody who is a combination of a high S personality, they're steady, and maybe a high C personality to work at my parts counter. Maybe that's what it is. It gives us a benchmark to start. Number two, we've got to make sure that people we're bringing on fit into the team we have in place. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, but we've got to make sure that that's happened. And so most dealerships we work with have done assessments on their whole team so that when they bring in somebody they know how to communicate with that person and what they need to do to make sure that person is part of the team. I think one of the best examples of this is a few years ago, my husband and I both needed new phones. And we're obviously an Apple family because we know that those products always consistently work, unlike Androids. And it's a little bit of an office strife. But so my husband is a high S, like steady and compliant personality, high S, high C personality. So you can be a combination of any of these, right? He's a high S, high C personality. I am a high D, I'm a driver, and a high I personality. And when we both needed these new phones, it was right when the iPhone 7 Plus was coming out. So it was a few years ago. I said, all right, honey, we both need new phones. What kind of phone do you want me to order for you? And he said, well, let me think about it. Like, what do you need to think about? You want like the 7 or the 7 Plus? Like, this is not something that we need to do. He says, I need to do some research first. Like, research? I said, my biggest issue is what color am I going to get? Am I going to get rose gold or silver? And he said, well, that is not my biggest concern. I need to understand what the dependability of these phones are. Dependability. So in the midst of this, he ended up getting an iPhone 2 generations before because it was proven and all the bugs were worked out. Well, I wanted the newest, greatest, fastest, and coolest, right? So that's why these personalities are so different, but we have to understand how we work together and communicate. So that's why we do assessments. One quick side note, if this is something that you want to get your hands on a little bit more and in depth, we have someone from our office, Natalie, and she does this all the time. She works with dealerships across the country, making sure you're putting the right people in the right place and that your team already is functioning well together. After this webinar, I will send out a link for a free assessment for these. But just as a heads up, if you have more questions, Natalie from our office can help you with that. All right, so the initial interview. And look, here's a picture of my husband with his new phone. Isn't that nice? Look at that dependability. That's sweet. So the initial interview, we encourage you to do the initial interview over the phone, right? We want to do an initial phone interview. And there are 3 things that we want to know about the person through this initial interview. There are a few quick guidelines, though, I'd like to have you set up in regards to this initial interview. First, we're going to try to call and set up this time with somebody around noon. All right, the reason we do this is a few different reasons. First, we want to talk to them on the phone around noon because we want to make sure it doesn't sound like they just woke up. Because I don't know any dealership that opens up around noon and expects their people to be there around noon. I don't know any dealership that does that. So it's important to be sure that they're awake. And if they do have a job, typically noon is a good time because they're on lunch break. So we're going to try to call and have a conversation with them around noon. And we want to find out these 3 things. Does the person have the ability to actually do the job? We are going to ask questions that help us understand the person's previous jobs, and if it's somebody we feel like we can train to make them to help them fit into this job that we're trying to hire. Do they have a desire to make my company part of their lives? All right, we just spent a lot of time talking about the cost of hiring the wrong person, right? And we are not necessarily looking for someone who's going to be there for 3 months and then switch to a new job. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. You have invested so much in this company to make what it is today. And for you to spend your valuable time and money on someone who does not have a desire to be with you for at least a year is crazy in my mind. So we've got to understand, is this just a filler job, or is this something that they're hoping to have for a little bit of a longer term? And then third, will they fit into the team I have in place? All right, we don't have a whole lot of time to dive into that. That third one goes back to the assessments we just talked about, the personality. Is their personality going to match with these? So we always have, at this point, make sure that people are taking the personality assessments, and we ask them to complete them within 24 hours. Because if you ask somebody to do something and give them a timeline, you will understand their follow-through. So depending on what that position is, everybody we hire and interview has 24 hours to take their initial assessment. If they don't, they've opted out of that job, because we want to make sure that they can actually do the follow-through that we're asking them to. So does the person have the ability to do the job? Do they have the desire to make my company part of their lives? And will they fit in the team I have in place? Again, in the NATDA Dealer Toolbox, we have principles that you can get and fill out with specifics and answers to each of these questions. So I encourage you to go check that out. So that's the initial interview. This should take no more than about 15 minutes. I encourage you to do it around noon. And this is going to give you your first cut, right? Is this a person who's actually going to be a fit and ability for us to move forward with this person? That's the first thing we've got to find out. All right, the next thing we're going to do, we've had this brief conversation, we've done the assessment, and we are going to start narrowing down our field a little bit more. And we are going to call references. And so whenever I'm talking about this and I ask dealers, how many of you actually call references for a new employee? I would say there's probably only 2 hands in the room that ever go up. And I think this is the thing that we've got to understand. As we think about an employee, if we have an employee for 6 months and they don't work out, and they cost us $125,000. We have to treat this like a house, right? In Kansas City, you can get a house for $125,000. And I would never buy a home without having an inspection done on it. I just wouldn't do it. And so would you spend $125,000 and not ask for references? Think about that. Maybe you're putting in a new parking lot like we talked about earlier. Would you spend $125,000 on paving a new parking lot and not ask for a few references from the company who's going to do that work for you? Maybe it's a new service truck you're getting ready to spend $125,000 on. Are you not going to have that truck looked over like something fierce, and then you're going to call and ask other people who've had the same truck if they like it or not? This is the same thing you've got to do as you're talking to references. We've got to understand who we're bringing on. You know, everybody has baggage. Nobody is exempt from baggage. But as an owner or manager, we have to understand what the baggage is that they are coming in with. So here are the things that we want to know as we're talking to references. Number one, first off, we're going to ask for 5 references. I know that seems like a lot, but it's important that we have 5 different references, because this gives us, they've got to search for 5. Like, you know, everybody's got their first 2 or 3 pretty easy, they're rote ones, but when we get them to number 4 or 5, they've got to think about it a little bit. Like, who knows me at that 4 or 5 level that I could put as a reference? So that's where you're going to get the real good information, 5 references. So we want to know, how do you know the applicant? Like maybe it's PTA, maybe it's through church, maybe it's a previous employer, but how do you know that applicant? And then we're going to ask them this question. We're going to say, give me 5 adjectives to describe the applicant, right? First off, you got to get their thinking hats on just a little bit. What's an adjective? Yikes, figure that out. But by not asking just a direct question of, could you describe the applicant for me, they have to give you adjectives for it. So that's a really telling thing about what they think about that person. The next question we ask is, what do you think the applicant needs most in a work environment? It may be stability. It may be consistency. It may be ever-changing job requirements. Whatever that is, you will see if this person is really going to fit into this job that you have. Because we are not hiring a person to fit a job. We have this job that we've already done. We're not going to change it for this person coming in. The job is the job. We need the person to fit the job, not the job fit the person. And so by asking these questions, we're going to get to the bottom of that. If you could hire them again, would you? And maybe if it's somebody who hasn't hired them or hasn't worked with them in that capacity, would you say, if you were in my spot, would you hire them? That will tell you a lot. And then the last thing is there anything else you can tell me about this applicant that would help me make a hiring decision? We hired somebody probably about a year ago, and she's great. We just love her to death. And as we were calling her references and asking these questions, the person we talked to was a previous manager, and he said, if we could clone her and have 10 of her, I would be in heaven as a manager, all right? And that sealed the deal for us. We wanted her on our team because he thought so highly of her. He said, I just want to clone her and have 10 of her because I would have an easy job as a manager. And she has turned out to be an incredible asset to our team. But you've got to call the references, dig up the dirt a little bit, do the inspection on the house, and call and ask these questions. We're not just going to walk over $125,000 because you could be making a $125,000 mistake if we don't do this well. All right, so let's talk about, we went through all of these steps, all right, and now we're at this point of the in-person interview. All right, so there are so many questions that you can ask when you're doing an in-person interview, but I want to go over 3 real quick that we ask on our team to get to the bottom of people that are just a little bit different than what you would normally ask in an interview. All right, so the first question that we ask at BCR as we're working with dealers is this blank check question. And it's simply this. So that I can get to know you better, why don't you take a moment and tell me about yourself? You can start anywhere and end anywhere. All right, so when you're asking this question, here's what I want you to do. I want you to have a blank legal pad. I want you to have a pen, and I want you to say this. So that I can get to know you better, why don't you take a moment and tell me about yourself? You can start anywhere and end anywhere. And then I want you to stop talking. Just be silent, right? And it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be awkward, but the person you are interviewing will start talking. And they will tell you stories about things that you could never actually ask about. Because you are all aware, I hope, that there are certain things you can legally ask and not ask in an interview. But when you ask somebody this question and they present the information to you, you will start understanding their baggage. So they may say something like this. They may say, well, I'm married, I have 4 kids, my wife stays at home, and I'm really involved in my church. I like to go on a mission trip for 3 months of the year. I hope that's not a problem, is it? Right? Yeah, especially if that is during season where we need you in the shop. That's a problem. But you will be able to understand things that you could never actually ask about. So that's the blank check question. I encourage you to ask it of everyone. Some people will talk for 30 seconds about themselves. Some people will talk for 5 minutes about themselves. But you will learn more in that question than you could ever legally ask somebody in a job interview. The next question, the second of the third question, is this best friend question. And here's what I want you to say. There's 3 parts to this. The first thing is you're going to say, other than your spouse or significant other, what is the first name of your best friend? Okay, so you can't say your spouse or your significant other as your best friend, but other than that person, who is your best friend? The first name. And if they say, hey, you know what, my best friend's name is Sara Hey, you go, okay, first off, excellent choice on best friend. Second, I ask for their first name, right? It tells you that they are not paying attention to the details as much, and that's something to be aware of, right? If you're looking for someone who's a detail-oriented job, right, maybe it's inventory or whatever that could be, it is important that they pay attention to the details and things like that. All right, so we have that first part. What's the first name of your best friend? Of all of your friends, why did you pick that person? Again, you are going to get to the bottom of things that you could never actually ask. They may say, hey, you know what? That person has been really consistent with me and steady, right? They like consistency. That's something that's important to them. Maybe they say, I went through a really hard time and dealt with X, Y, and Z, and that person was there with me. You will get information that you could never legally ask them by asking this question. The third part of this question is, I want you to imagine I run into Sarah as you're jumping on an airplane. And I ask her for 5 adjectives to describe you. What 5 adjectives would Sarah use to describe you? So what's happening here? Number 1, do we know what an adjective is? All right. Did we pass 8th grade English and grammar class? If not, that's a whole different issue. But we want to know, what do you think of yourself, but you wouldn't put that label on yourself? It's important to understand what they truly think of themselves, because that is who is going to come out after you hire them, who they think of themselves. All right, so that's the best friend question. Other than your spouse or significant other, what's the first name of your best friend? Of all of your friends, why did you pick them, right? And then what 5 adjectives would that person use to describe you? All right, the things you're going to hear, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just insane. All right, the third question that we always ask that's a little bit different from what you normally find is this background check question. And it's simply this. If we were to do a complete background check on you, is there anything that might come up in the background check that you'd like to share with me now? Okay, so well, first off, let me just say, we are big proponents of actually doing background checks on everyone. It's not that we don't want people who have no baggage. Everybody's going to have baggage, but we just want to understand what that baggage is. We want to understand what we're bringing into our dealership. I mean, most of you are family-owned businesses like us. You have your kids in there. You have your grandkids. You have your customers. I mean, it's just important to understand who you're bringing into your dealership. And so not only do we ask this question and have people be honest with us, if they're not honest with us and we pull a background check, I mean, it's a no-go for us. Because if it shows up on the background check and they haven't said it, there's an integrity issue there, and that's not something you can necessarily change. But we want to make sure that we are taking care of our people that we already have in place and the people who come into our dealership as our customers. So ask the background check question and actually do a background check. I mean, in our world anymore, it's just non-negotiable. Okay, so we've gone through this whole process. We've asked the questions. We've done the assessments. We've done all of these things. And we get to this place where we have 1 or 2 candidates left. All right, we've got 1 or 2 candidates, and we are ready for the final interview. So when we talk with dealers about doing the final interview, there's a few things we say. Number 1, take the person off site. Maybe that's coffee, maybe that's lunch. I mean, it needs to be really informal, because when you take them outside of your dealership, their guards go down. And again, we are here, we're detectives looking for baggage so that we can fully understand what we're bringing onto our team. So the first thing we're going to do is ask clarifying questions about their references. We're going to say, hey, you know, we talked to Mark, your old manager, and he said he'd love that one of the things that you did so well was you took care of customers. What did you enjoy most about taking care of customers? Because he said you excelled at that, right? Ask clarifying questions. Show that you actually did your work on the side and that you are looking into that as well. Answer their questions. If this person is ready to make your dealership part of their world and their life, they are going to have questions. It may be things as, you know, what is the vacation policy like? You know, maybe it's, what do I have to wear? Do you have a cell phone policy? Whatever these questions are, there should be a few questions that you need to answer. Right? And then you need to have their compensation package ready to discuss and be ready to make an offer. It's so important that you have this all pulled together. Again, this is only something that's going on with 1 or 2 people. This is not something that is just happening with everybody. So it's important that we have this ready to go. One quick thing, as we're talking about this, as you're thinking about compensation, when we're talking about job descriptions, all the way at the beginning, we encourage dealers to put salary ranges on job descriptions. And I know some of you are like, oh, Sarah, are salary ranges on job descriptions? You don't want to get to this point of the final interview where you have spent all this time and energy and get to the end of this and say, you know what, this person's not going to work financially for us. We did that. Like, this is something we preach. We had a salary range on one of our job descriptions, and we didn't bring it back up in any of the other conversations. We just assumed this person saw it. We got all the way to the final interview when we were ready to make this person an offer, and we couldn't make it work financially. She was wanting more than what we had budgeted. And so we had spent so much time and effort that could have been dealt with if at the initial phone interview, we had just had that quick conversation. So take time, have the compensation ready to discuss, but make sure that was already covered earlier. Okay, so that was a lot of information, and I understand that. So let's open it up for questions if you have any, and I'd love to answer those. Let's see. All right, so one question that we have is about recruiters. You know, and I think that's one of those things that comes up quite often. I mean, sometimes. I think a lot of times people are looking for employees and they don't even know where to start, and they'll get a call from a recruiter, or you'll call them. Here's the deal with the recruiters. You know, everyone's terms are a little bit different, but they're expensive. Like, I mean, it's not unlikely to like look at spending an extra $15,000 to $20,000 on some of the recruiters if them to find a person for you. If you're in a pinch and you really need this person and they have somebody who's a good match for you and you think might work for you long term, it's not a bad idea necessarily, but it's going to cost you. The other thing is that there are periods, right, with that where you have to be committed all in with them before a certain amount of time. And then if it doesn't work out, you own that person and you're out that extra money. So that's one of the questions we do get often is how do you deal with recruiters and should you use them? I mean, it depends on your situation. It just depends. Let's see if we have any other questions who have popped through here. All right, I think that's it. All right, well, I will let you guys all go right here. We're right on time, so look at that. That's not something that normally happens. So thank you so much for taking the time and spending some time with me this afternoon. I hope this was helpful. If you have other questions that we can answer, shoot me an email, and I will either answer your question or get you connected with the right person on our team to answer it. It's just Sara, S-A-R-A, at bobclements.com. And I'd love to help you. And we'll be sending out an email after this with the link that I was talking about and just a few other goodies for you. So thank you guys so much. Have a great day, and it's just always a pleasure. Thanks.